What's up, man? How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Doing good. Looking forward to talking about tokenomics.
Oh, tokenomics. I didn't know what we're talking about today.
Well, get ready because we're diving into it. Damn. We're just going to scratch the surface, though. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a couple pieces here that we should probably have additional videos where we just do a deep dive on.
Yeah, and I think really we just want to clarify things, make it easier for people to understand. So it's video form instead of reading through it. You can explain stuff easier. Also, you have a couple updates that people are going to be excited about, I think.
Cool. Let's dive in. Let's talk about what DeEEP Network is not first. First, we're not a hardware project.
Oh, but we have hardware. How are we not hardware?
I'll let you describe what we are.
Okay.
So we're not a hardware project. We're not a bandwidth sharing project or platforms, and we're not a node project. So why don't you talk a little bit about what we are?
Simplest form, we're an infrastructure. Yes, we have hardware. Yes, we are going to use bandwidth, but we are an infrastructure, right? We have both ends of the table here where we have the income with the workloads that are coming in and that are going to utilize the workload capacity of the devices that are in the actual network itself. So in simple terms, we're an actual full infrastructure.
And a secure one at that, with a token that has true utility.
And we'll get into that as we go through talking about the Flywheel, that token utility, which we feel is key to how the success of the network is going to work.
We have a couple key stakeholders. We have the hardware operators, the service creators,
community is the hardware operators, right? So service owners, what is a service owner?
Great question.
Exactly. Service owner is the person that has a node that wants to be ran on the network. Right? So that's a service owner.
So it's somebody that owns a Gala node or
Gala node, a grid node, Ethereum validator. That's a service owner. Hardware owner, obviously, that's all of you guys out there that have a device and have it plugged into a business, your home, or wherever that's at. Service creators. Okay.
Yeah. Service creator is one of the communities. Again, a Helix, Ethereum, Validator, Grid, Playable. Yeah. Any of these communities that are out there building a Web3 application.
Yeah. Service owners. Yeah. And then you have the community. Again, community device owners. You could be a node operator or a node owner, a service owner, whatever. And anybody that's even just in the Discord that loves DeEEP and maybe you just support the project. When you don't have a device yet, you're going to get one or whatnot, but you're the community member, which we value.
See if you're going to have it in NFT. Wait to see the capacity increase.
I'm sure all the people watch that view as far.
So that's what we are.
Cool. Pillars of earning. I love how they got this out for us. So how do people earn on our network, Chris?
Yeah. So there's 3 ways to earn. You can mint token and you can earn token by providing the network capacity. And so for me, the easiest one to understand is hosting fees. Yep. You get paid 50% of all the hosting fees that are generated on your box.
Yes.
That's the easiest thing for me to
explain a hosting fee really quick.
Yeah. So we charge for the workloads that are on our platform. So if somebody wants to run a node or a validator, they sign up with the DeEEP Network. They're going to pay maybe $8 a month for a node. $4 of that is going to go into our DeEEP operators straight from hosting fees. And so that's what we talked about with hosting fees. You're getting half of what somebody is paying to run on the DeEEP network.
And we'll talk about the other half a little later. Yeah, 50% for securing the network. You are the network, you're the backbone. So 50% of all those hosting fees goes to you.
Yeah, why don't we just jump in right now and just pretty easy to explain where the other 50% goes. It's in our light paper.
Yep.
So 27% of that is going to the DeEEP network.
Yep.
It's going to our operations to make sure that we've got a really stable, secure environment. We've got devs working behind the scenes. We've got us doing podcasts. So 27% goes to the DeEEP network.
I just want to be clear. I haven't received anything for doing this podcast yet.
And you probably still won't. So 20% after that goes to the NAS provider. And so right now, NerdNode is the NAS provider. If you watch some of our other videos, we've leaked that we're going to have a couple other NAS operators come. And I'm sure there'll be a link somewhere here at some point where you'll be able to see what becoming a NAS on NerdNode is. So 20% goes to the NAS provider.
And that I'm excited to get into because 20% is a big deal for those NAS.
Yeah.
Especially with some of the stuff that we have that's coming out really soon. It's a lot. Actually, it sounds small than 20%, but it's a big deal, especially when you talk about the network. The DeEEP network is taking over the bulk of everything that's going on there. You talk about all the development that goes into play, all the marketing and the sales, and then the hardware capability is being ran by the other 50% side. So
yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. We got 3% left. Where does it go?
you have service creators. So what does that mean? The service creator.
At some point, you'll be able to take the templates that we're doing on our workloads, and you'll be able to actually do the development to get a new platform onto the DeEEP network.
That's awesome.
So as we templatize what we're doing in the DeEEP network, we're going to invite the community to enrich the opportunities that you have for hosting. If you have a project that you believe deeply in, you can actually write the code and manage it, maintain it for anybody to deploy in the DeEEP network. So we've carved out 2.7% for that. And right now, where does that go? It goes to DeEEP because DeEEP's doing all of the onboarding of new projects. But eventually, we want the community out there developing projects. And the last 0.3% goes to community fund.
Yeah.
We will mint community fund token at the beginning, but this 0.3% is the way that the community fund will continue to get a little bit of money coming in so that we can spend on marketing fees and promos. And
and it's a pretty large amount that gets minted to the community fund.
Exactly.
It sounds small here, but we're minting a lot at the beginning so the community can be involved with a lot of stuff that we want to do to grow them. Sweet. Let's talk about plugin rewards.
Yeah, so let's talk more traditional, right? Okay, so hosting rewards, what I would cover first is more of a Web 2 play. When you're talking about the node ecosystems, you don't always hear that you're like actually getting that. Typically, you're hearing about minted rewards. So we've got two ways to mint rewards. The first is plug in. Literally just be on the network. Get your device, plug it into the internet, plug it into power, and you're on and you're earning your plug-in rewards. Pretty simple. We've got it broken down into 5 tiers to encourage people to come in early to the network. So the first 10,000 devices that are on the network will get 10,000 tokens per month for the first 12 months. Every tier, we have tiers 1 through 5. It's 10,000 devices per tier, and it degrades by half each time. So the second tier gets 5,000 per month. The third tier gets 2,500 per month until we get to 50,001 devices. And at that point, there is no plugin rewards.
So what is the purpose of a plugin reward? We have hosting rewards. It should just be like, hey, we have hosting rewards. Why plugin?
So as we grow our network, there's going to be unused capacity. And we want to make sure that you're bringing your device on and you're getting paid for that, and where you're going to get compensated for your electricity, your internet, even if it's not fully utilized at the beginning. So we want you to go out and plug in your device to show that there's capacity so that we can go out and bring on new projects showing them that the capacity exists. Literally, it's just a reward to make sure your machine's plugged in.
Awesome. There's a little, we want to clarify on plugin rewards too. So we've sold 1,776 devices.
Yep.
And one of the benefits of being early in those devices was you get plugin rewards. We already just said that there's 120,000 in the first 10,000. That's there. But they've all been on testnet, right? So these plugin rewards that you guys are receiving in the first 1,776 are actually bonus rewards. So once testnet goes live, once mainnet goes live, then your plugin rewards will start at that point in time. All the time that you've been plugged in before that are all bonus plugin rewards. So your device still has, it will be minted those 120,000, and you'll be on those over the next 12 months with that device.
And that's a thank you to all the people who bought the founders devices. You've already been online, some people up to 190 days already. And thank you for doing that. We've really been using that network to test workloads, test what the strengths are, test where we're at in the world. And so we want to make sure that those people are getting rewarded for being on. But we need to start the plugin rewards at mainnet, at TGE. And so anybody who buys a device from now on in tier 1, because we're sold out of the founders units, you'll start getting your rewards when you plug in your device as a part of your 120,000 mainnet opportunity.
And the bonus, these rewards actually are what is going to seed our network. This is what we go back to hosting rewards, and we'll talk about the flywheel effect, right? But we need to cover here a little bit is these node as a service providers or whoever's running the workload has to pay for it in DeEEP. You have to have DeEEP to pay for it. There's no DeEEP in a while. You device owners are the ones that are going to have the DeEEP to be able to sell to these node as a service providers to buy the DeEEP and run the workloads. So NerdNode is going to have to get DeEEP from somewhere. So once we go mainnet, great. Now there's DeEEP in the wild. Let's get it going.
Yeah, perfect. So let's move on to our utilization rewards. Just I think we want to help people understand here, this is where your IP comes in, and just talk a little bit about what we're doing to utilization rewards and how we're actually adding some bonuses now.
So utilization rewards, calculating in CPR, which is calculated performance rating. So CPR essentially, to make it really simple, you can read through this and we'll put a little graphic here that shows all the stuff. But in reality, we took these MS01 devices that we have here and the amount of workloads we can run on that and breaking it down into VMs, virtual machines per device. And with that, we were able to calculate and get a calculation for how much we could do on here. And so that comes down to there's 600 DeEEP that are locked for a 12-month time frame. Is that what
There's all. It sounds a lot less, more than that, because I think it's 72,000
total? So let's see.
I think it's 600 times
70
machines.
Yeah, times virtual machines, times the whole deal. There's all calculation. I don't want to link through it. You get 72,000 that are on each device. Again, like the plugin rewards, these are utilization rewards that are minted to that device. So those utilization rewards, as they are used on your device, get put into a pool, and that pool is broken down to the people that are actually utilizing workloads on their device. So that's distributed out to them. So it's another way to make sure that, one, you're not just plugged in, but you're actually plugged in and you have good power. It's not going off at night, or your wife's not turning it off because she can't watch Netflix, or you have enough bandwidth that's be able to run some of the workloads around. So this is a way that we need to make sure and maintain a good network that's up.
Yes. Yeah. So I think the requirement, like paper states, that to get part of the utilization pool, you need to have 99% uptime.
Yes.
And have good citizen status. I think this topic is something we really should probably do a follow-up video on, talk about utilization. But in general, 72,000 tokens are minted when you buy your DIN NFT, and that's released when it's utilized. There's a couple opportunities, just things to be excited about. Bonus rewards for dedicated IP addresses. We've been talking a lot about needing to have IP addresses for each device. Yeah. We're going to get into this in a separate video, but we're going to reward people for having multiple IP addresses, not taking plugin rewards away.
That's a big deal. Let's just be clear. So the IP address that everybody's worried about, we're taking away the negative effect of it, of where you're only going to get half of your plugin rewards to you're actually, if you have an IP, you now will get bonus rewards. So we're going to do a multiplier within the utilization rewards. DIN NFTs will come in and play with that too, but the big one is going to be IP. So we want to reward the IP rather than have a more negative effect.
Yep.
We'll go into depth with what those multipliers are going to be at another video explaining all that, but that's a big change.
Yeah, and from the IP standpoint, we have 1.7 devices per DeEEP operator right now. A lot of them have gone out and got multiple IP addresses. Why this is so important for us is we can get different workload types that can pay better if you have a unique IP for each box. That doesn't mean you're not going to get workloads like your box if you don't have unique IPs. So this is a way for us to reward people who've gone out there and spent the money to make sure that our network has the best options possible to go out there and sell to.
And IP also was there to help us decentralize too.
Yeah.
To distribute the network to more people, more places, rather than single entities.
Yeah, I think people are going to be really excited about this. But let's swing back into utilization rewards, close it.
Ken,
you distracted me.
Sorry.
But there's going to be bonuses for IP addresses.
Yep.
There's also going to be bonuses for some special rarities inside the DIN NFT collection. And again, we'll come back to that. So a little bit of teaser, but we're excited to really Web3ize what we're doing at the DIN NFT. Maybe said at some point I get to create a one-of-one DIN NFT, and we're really excited.
That would be great. It's going to be some weird fish thing. What you want?
Yeah, it's probably going to be an anglerfish that juggles.
You're going to have to do a whole video on why juggling is
fantastic. I might juggle during that video.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Fantastic. Let's move on.
All right.
So we've talked about our 3 pillars of how you make money, or how you make DeEEP tokens. And now let's move on to the next topic.
Supply and economics. Everybody in cryptos, supply and economics is always an interesting one. People are supply of a token is a big deal for people, right? Is it too many? Is it too little? The whole thing, that's it. In reality, you can have a certain supply, but if there's no demand for that supply, it doesn't even matter. Trying to balance the two. And we're bringing in demand from the get-go, right? We have NerdNode that has to buy these tokens. Our supply is limited by per device, right? So the amount of tokens in the ecosystem are all dependent on here. We talked about it before, how much is minted, right? Each device is minting 120,000 plugin rewards and 72,000 utilization rewards. So you can extrapolate that out in terms of where we're going to be at, depending on how many devices are out there. We have some examples of 1,776, right? There's 669 million tokens that are minted. That seems a little bit more than the 120 and the 72. Why is that?
Yeah, there's a little bit to the community fund. I think it's just over 500,000 devices or 500,000 tokens get minted to the community fund.
575 million to be exact.
So there's some community fund. There's also some founder token.
Yep.
So every device that mints tokens will also mint founders tokens that get unlocked. For us, we do the goals as a founding team.
And we'll get into that here just a minute. So that's your supply, right? Supply is limited on the devices that are in the ecosystem.
So are inflationary?
Yes.
Okay.
Technically, but it's higher in the beginning, but it lowers over time because the only thing after the first 50,000 devices that are now minted on that are founders and utilization, right? So after 50,000 devices, that's all that gets added to it. So the amount of inflation is pared down drastically because, again, remember, 575 million community fund purely to expand the network, expand the community, do all that kind of stuff that we want to do there. And then, again, that inflation goes down a lot. And you have to have a little bit of inflation is okay in terms of work growth. You want to have more workloads and everything out there. We'll need more tokens in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it makes sense. So buy a DeEEP device and add a little bit to the supply.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the token utility in that sense?
We've tried to really think about utility in a token.
Yeah.
Now, why just create another token? And in our network, we think there's some real utilization. I'll start with transaction fees. So when you buy a hosting node or a hosted validator, you're actually paying fees in DeEEP token. And that's the first part of our utility.
And the biggest part. That runs the network. They have to be ran there. So that's where it's at. It's the biggest part.
Definitely.
We're bringing governance power essentially within to be able to, we have to talk about that, each device, right? At DIN NFT, we've talked about in the past, they get the voting power that's there. The first 76, there's no staking that has to go along with that, right? The future devices will have to stake a certain amount to be able to count their vote within the ecosystem. It's not going to be drastic. I think we have it set out as a 1 month of plugin rewards, which is 10,000 plugin rewards that you have to stake to be able to vote in that. But it brings some of that supply up and utility to the token itself and just shows people who are active in the network and being there to be able to participate. So
I think going on with governance, we also have what a lot of projects have is a submission requirement will have token required for that.
yes.
So that's pretty standard going on with governance. Every time we talk, it like reminds me of how many different things there are in our ecosystem. We know, but maybe our community doesn't know. And so this is why we're going to do more of these talks is like with the governance piece, like we should do a video on that.
100%. We have to do a whole DAC video that's going to cover that as well. I just want to touch on that submission one's a big one because that's getting the community involved with what they feel should be active in the DeEEP network, right? If so you feel like we need to add this certain workload or we need to do a change to something within the ecosystem, you could put up a vote that goes in there. You have to stake deep with that to participate in it, but that's because we don't want 9 million votes of just random people putting stuff in all the time. It has to have some sort of risk versus reward. We'll make it to a point where it's like enough risk that people can participate, but not too much that it holds people away. There's a balancing act there, but definitely keep them active.
Yeah, sounds good.
Staking for SLA compliance.
So this one is about compute owners having to stake to be able to have collateral for high value assets that they want to bring on. Yeah, depends on what the project is, but there'll be opportunity to use DeEEP to stake.
Yeah, pretty simple. Just utilizing DeEEP.
So that's high level for like real simple utilities that we have today. So you talked earlier, you didn't get paid for the video, but let's talk about how that would come to you at some point.
Yeah, so founders rewards, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear. You're a founder.
Yes.
I'm a founder. Yes. Ben's a founder. So we founded the project. We founded NerdNode. We were here from the get-go. These are founders rewards that are distributed to us as being a part. These are, for some reason, called founders devices. Okay, we're going to change that with a vote. Hopefully you guys all vote yes to freedom devices because we don't want to confuse the people that, yes, they're called a founder's device, but that doesn't mean you're an actual founder founder of the network here, but we want to change it, right? So there's no confusion. So when we talk about founders, it's the core group of people that were here from the get-go that started this. And we try to make it a very fair to the network people and not a very one-sided play, right? A lot of times in the crypto ecosystem, you can see founders that are getting 50% of the network that's coming out, and they get all their stuff minted, and now they could just dump on the community and that kind of thing. And then they run away with millions or billions of dollars, and they don't actually build the network, right? So what we've tried to do is develop a system that makes it so we only get rewarded when we're actually building a network, doing the things that we said we wanted to do, right? So we have a motivation here to actually push forth a network that's going to benefit you as the backbone of the network, and will benefit us as we keep going down the road too. So we're in this together. It's a team effort. So let's talk about some of those performance metrics.
So at the beginning, the founders aren't getting anything just minted to them. Community fund's getting minted.
Yep.
Each device is minting tokens,
Yep.
but there's not a big chunk that's the founders do.
Each device will mint a founder's pool. So on top of your 120 and 72,000, there's 0.12 or 12% that gets minted to the founder's pool, right? Now, the founder's pool, we won't actually get access to that until we meet metrics. And if you do the calculations, the actual 12% turns out to be about 9% of the network in terms of tokens that are allocated to us. Pretty small overall when you look at what's there, but we believe in what we can do here, and it's going to benefit us. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, so a couple cool things you just said there is we believe in this network and what we're doing so much that we're only getting token contributed to the founder's share when a device is sold. And then it's getting released when we hit certain milestones. And these are the milestones that's going to make this network viable.
Viable, grow, like it's going to be why people use it. This is where we've started, and everybody's excited for it because we're bringing real utility, real workloads to the network. That's what people love to see. And so we want to continue that. So we have 5 breakdowns of these milestones we need to hit.
Okay, so there's a 20% release for the founders at each one of the milestones. So let's break them down. What's the first milestone?
Mainnet launch. So you're all in testnet, in plugin wars that we all talked about. So once we launch mainnet, 20% of the total founders tokens will get released to us.
Good. How do we release the next 20%?
Then we have so we break it down into the amount of devices. So we have at 5,000 devices.
But it's not just 5,000 devices.
With its 50% capacity.
Exactly.
Let's be clear. That's big. Yeah.
We have to sell the devices, and the devices have to be running workloads.
Yeah, because we always talk about that. We want to have capacity. You want to have capacity to grow, but we also don't want to be so low that we want to be able to keep adding to the network, right? We have to be motivated too if we want to get our devices. So that's 5,000 devices, and 50% of those, or 50% of the network is being used with those 5,000 devices. So that's the other 20%. Yeah.
So again, we're trying to hit the goals here of our project. We don't just want to flood the market with capacity for compute without paying our users, because then we won't add more capacity and then people will start turning devices off. So we have set up the project for the milestone of devices plus compute.
Yep.
So the next 20% is about how many workloads we can bring on. So
not just workloads, but the diversity of workloads.
Sure.
That's a big deal. We want diversity. So this is broken down. This section, the 20% is actually broken down into 4 different categories.
50 new workloads per category, right?
Yes.
Okay. So there are hundreds, thousands of nodes validators out there today. We want to choose the right ones that are going to bring out workloads. So we're not just going to flood with every node out there, ecosystem out there just to meet this criteria. We're really building templates to bring out workloads that are paying can increase the capacity. If you go back to the last requirement, we have to be at 50% capacity. So the node types you're bringing on, the validators, these are projects we believe will have true value to our network.
Yep, and you help with the earning potential on your side. So we want the ones that are really going to do well.
So yeah, there's another metric that releases at 10,000 devices. So again, we're going to continue to get incentivized to build the network, build the infrastructure, and make DeEEP Network really valuable.
Yep. So with 5,000 to 10,000, and then the last one that's on the list is a DAO DAC launch. Yeah, we're going to go a whole detailed video on the DAC and talk about how it's structured, why we want it to be structured this way. And once we release that, that's the other 20%. So that total releases 100% of the founders' the founders' tokens, right?
Yeah.
Now that could be done. Obviously, all of that could be done at 10,000 devices live, right? So once we get 10,000, all those could be live. That's 10,000 devices, and every device after that will emit some token to us as well.
Yeah.
As founders.
So we've done this to protect our community from founders' dumps that you've seen out there. We're committed long-term to this project. And there's metrics here, and everybody can see milestones of what we got to chase to unlock our potential earnings that we feel aligns with the network.
Yeah. And one of the things, why be clear, is the DeEEP network that it is now is fully funded by us internally. We don't have any VCs that are getting magic tokens or anything like that. And what we see here, the founders. And if there is something that has to go out of there, that comes out of the founders.
Yeah, we're committed. And that's the kind of the big message. All right. Next topic. What are the different pieces of what we call Flywheel?
Yeah, Flywheel. And the simplicity of it all is you have a DeEEP token. Why do we have a token? And it is going to be used. How does that affect the network and keep it going? Call it Flywheel because one portion gets used here to then move it to the next portion and it moves it around. So we've talked about everything. So now we put it all together. So we have DeEEP token that's getting minted into the ecosystem. That DeEEP token has to be used to run workloads. So the node as the service providers has to purchase that, or maybe they're running devices. NerdNode is not, just to be clear. But this token has to be purchased. So then NerdNode right now will buy that token on the open market to then pay the hosting fees on these devices to be able to run it. So that's in very simplistic terms right now. You have supply and demand, right? You supply the token and the demand to purchase it in very simplistic manners right there. Now we add in the other utilization of the DeEEP network or the DeEEP token itself. And we talked about the other utilities into it. They enhance the flywheel that takes supply, they kind of move it around. Really, that's the simplicity of it.
People listening in our industry are trying to find these projects that are really creating this flywheel supply demand, but long-term ecosystem play.
Yeah.
Not just minting a whole bunch of tokens. We've seen some projects do where the token is not a utility, it's not coming back, it's not used.
Yeah, we see that our ecosystem is great. And we've noticed this community is awesome because they are coming here for that, or a lot of them are. Crypto can be this pumping up scheme and what meme coin's going next. There's no utility there, right? A lot of DeEEP, like you said, you're either trying to build it in or they had it built in to where there is that flywheel effect, and it makes it so everybody can benefit and everybody can maintain the network.
Yeah, so there's a reason for people to buy our token, to hold our token, and to participate in our.
And that changes everything that goes into play too. We are going to need to purchase token. If there is very low supply, the price is going to go up because it has to be purchased. If there's a higher supply that's out there, if everybody's selling their token, the price is going to go down. But you'll see with that demand of the purchase itself and the actual utilizing of it in the network, you'll see it steady kind of move around, hopefully in a steady fashion. It's not going to be a stable coin, but we want it to be utilized in 2000.
Okay, that's good. All right, so we've had a good discussion, Nate, on tokenomics. We've gone all over the place. We had a high-level script what we want to talk about, but these are good conversations. Let's just talk a couple bullet points, like closing thoughts. You drill down, why is tokenomics important to us, and why is it fair, and what we've set up, we believe, is the right setup for us.
Yeah, I think we covered most of it. Just to go a high level overview, like the tokenomics itself, we set it up to where not one entity is going to control the bulk of the token to start. When we talked about that with the founders distributions, and we're doing that. We're building out the smart contract now, but essentially we'll dictate that. So we hit certain milestones. Some of that may not be smart contract, but we're also implementing a DAC, right? Which will be able to say, hey, this has happened. Does everybody vote yes if this has happened or whatever? We could push that forward as well. We're building it out so it's not one-sided. We want it to be a very fair network that works overall. Distribution's a lot, as in like where it goes. And we wanted to focus the energy on the network itself and the backbone of that, which is the hardware, right? And the hardware deployers and the owners of that hardware. And so 50% of all the hosting rewards goes to the network itself. We really want to focus on hosting rewards, right? Because that's the flywheel effect. That's the utility of the token. That's the main thing. We really want that to be the core. And when people focus on what this device does, it's the hosting rewards. In fact, that it's actually doing something. It's not just a ping node that sits out there or a useless piece of hardware that all of a sudden infinite supply has been minted and now it's only doing a little bit for you. It doesn't even make sense for you to plug it in. We want to make sure that you keep that plugged in because there's a real use case for everything that you're doing.
That's right. Our tokenomics rewards actual use, not affiliation.
Yep, exactly.
And then we have secure contracts that are releasing tokens to the founders to protect the network as well. We've got a long-term flywheel effect to keep people turning token, spending token, and keep building the ecosystem in that way.
Yep. We spent a lot of time on this. We've been working on this project for a few years now. And so we've spent a lot of time on the tokenomics to make it fair and really talk about it. We've talked with VCs in the past. And in order to get tokenomics the way the VCs like it, it just didn't fit well and sit well with us because it excluded the community and or what we want to talk about is the backbone of the network because they want a lion's share. They want to be able to get their return back, which I understand on VC. There's places for that. There's places for VCs. But we felt like we could start this with the community here and really push it and make it really good because we have both sides.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job, hopefully explaining it. There's more questions I'm sure people will have, and join our Discord. We're happy to talk about in detail what each piece of this means.
Yeah.
We understand our project's complicated in many different facets. Again, most of that's in our head and it's clear to us, but sometimes it's hard to get it out there. So I appreciate the conversation today on tokenomics. And this will lead into big things coming down the road. And as we get closer to TGE and mainnet and workloads on the networks, and there's a lot to talk about. So we'll try to do another next week.
Cool. Sounds good. Talk to you later.
Bye.